What's up, you guys? Welcome to JR3 TV. I'm your man, JR3, and this is my first YouTube video. Before we get started on today's video, I want to sincerely thank you all for making your way over to my channel. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and I hope to keep bringing you all good content. As you can see, I got my Marvel hat on because today's video, we are talking about none other than my boy in the background, Spidey. Yes, we are talking Spider-Man No Way Home. This is a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen the movie, click off the video, go see the movie, come back to the video, hope you like it, and then you can enjoy it. But yes, this is for Spider-Man No Way Home, spoiler review. I'm a huge Marvel fan, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, so just before we dive into it, giving you the basis of how I felt coming off of this movie, this was the greatest movie that I've ever seen. This movie is honestly a love letter to the fans. Not only is it a love letter to the fans, but it's the Spider-Man that we want to see in the MCU. So let's dive on into it. So to start off the movie, of course, it starts off from Spider-Man Far From Home, when his identity was just revealed to the world. He's looking at the screen, oh my God, what's going on? And then so he turns around and, people are down on the ground harassing MJ. So of course he goes down there, he gets her, it's this one lady, she tries to grab him and, he doesn't hit her, he just like shrugs it off. And she's, oh, Spider-Man hit me, Spider-Man hit me. So then, they make their way back home and, he's in his apartment. It cuts to the scene of Happy and Aunt May, and basically, if you recall from the last movie, Aunt May was basically calling it a quits with Happy, basically, and then you just hear MJ and Peter in the background, and it's like they're in the room, just basically doing what they do. And so, so she walks in and, it cuts to the scene how in Spider-Man Homecoming, how when she came in and Peter was unclothed with Ned in the room, well, it's the same. He's unclothed with MJ in the room, except this time, she's actually excited to see MJ. So she comes in and she goes talking to him, and Peter and all them, they're trying to get them out the room. They're trying to, get the blinds closed, keep them away from the TV because they don't know that the whole world is basically watching them now. Damage Control, they're coming, with a warrant to arrest Peter. And then, so, they cut to the scene with them, they're in the interrogation room, they're being interrogated. And Aunt May is basically, telling them, like, look, I know my rights. If you are not charging us with anything, you can't hold us here. And then, so that's what the guy tells her, oh, if I was you, I would lawyer up, because not only, were you accomplished to Spider-Man, but you signed off as his legal guardian and allowed him to endanger himself. And so, then they cut to the scene, they're back in the apartment with their lawyer. And it's none other than Matt Murdock, Charlie Cox, Daredevil. He doesn't actually, come out as Daredevil in this movie, but he gives you a sense like, oh yeah, don't get it messed up. I know what I'm doing. And then so Peter, MJ, and Ned are gearing up for their first day of school, and it is chaos outside of the school. They done built a shrine to Spider-Man. They believe he's helping people. They tell him feel free to swing, crawl on the ceiling or anything, because we know you can do it. And the other teacher, from Homecoming, the PE teacher, he's like, we know what you did, you're a murderer and all this and that. So while Peter's walking through the school, of course, because it's high school, students, they pull out their phones, they're getting pictures and everything of Peter and all that. So, of course, Peter wants to get away from the chaos. So him and MJ, they go up to the rooftop, they're just chilling and whatnot, just getting away from everything. And that's when they were about to kiss, but then they got interrupted by Ned. And then, so anyway, they're talking about, it's their last year of high school. They're going to be graduating and going to college. All of them are trying to go to the same college, MIT. And then, so that's what they're making plans for that. Of course, they have backup schools as well. So, you know, the next scene is just a montage of them, you know, opening their letters and they're not getting accepted. And it's because Peter is Spider-Man and they have been accomplices to Spider-Man that they're not getting accepted. So his identity was revealed to the world. So now it's affecting his friends. And so, you know, he's just like, I gotta do something about this. I like the Halloween decorations up. And, you know, of course, the witch there looks like Doctor Strange. So he's like, I have an idea. I'll go to the Sanctum Sanctorum and talk to Doctor Strange. So, next scene, he makes his way to the Sanctorum. Peter, you know, he meets Wong. And oddly enough, Wong is now the Sorcerer Supreme. We thought it was going to be Doctor Strange, but it's actually Wong because Doctor Strange, you know, he blipped for 5 years. Peter is basically telling Doctor Strange, you know, hey, Doctor Strange, you know, Mysterio, he revealed my identity to the world, and now it's affecting my friends. It's affecting the people I love. You know, I was wondering if you could make it to where, he didn't tell my identity. And then Doctor Strange basically lets him know, that, messing with time just for that is kind of a iffy situation. So, he's like, I'm sorry, but, we can't do that. Well, he says there is one possibility. And he tells them about this spell. And then that's what Wong is basically saying, that spell is like very chaotic. And then so, Doctor Strange, she's gearing up to do the spell and stuff. And he basically, he tells Peter, it's been nice knowing you. And that is what starts it off. Peter's like, wait, what? And then he said, yeah. He said, once I cast this spell, everybody who knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man is going to forget about you. He had said, well, no, MJ should know. And then that's so strange. He redid it. He said, okay. He said, everybody except for your girlfriend will forget that you're Spider-Man. And then he said, oh, well, Ned, he's my best friend. He's my guy in the chair. And he's like, what is a Ned? And then he's like, okay, fine. And then he said, MJ and Ned. And then he's like, well, my Aunt May should really know too. And then Doctor Strange is like, let's not tamper with the spell any more than I have. And that's when, you see the rings, they start shaking. The spell goes everywhere. The ground starts tearing up and everything. And then Doctor Strange confines it all in. And then, Doctor Strange says, well, look, now that you have changed the spell and I can't let this spell out on the loose, I'm sorry, but, it is what it is. If you have talked to the admissions, and they done all they can do, and then Peter's like, wait, I can do that? And then Strange gives him this look like, Strange just basically throws Peter out. So then, he calls up Flash. Flash is over at some kind of like mixture like party for the people that did get into MIT. And then so he tells them, hey, I need to know, who's the admissions counselor. And Peter is basically just in the middle of the road. And he basically walks up to a car, he knocks on the window, and then she lets him run down, and he's basically pleading his case, but it's not for him. It's for MJ and Ned. And then so his spider sense goes out. I love the way they did spider sense in this movie. It's like, it's this ringing. And like everything else is drowned out. And Peter just looks around like, and then you start seeing people, come, running past Peter. And Peter jumps on top of the car, and then, he looks ahead and he sees something is coming from up on the ground. So he's yelling at everybody to get off the bridge. So then you start seeing, as we saw from the trailer, you start seeing tentacles just come up from the ground, just attacking the cars. And then Alfred Molina, Doc Ock, he makes his appearance. And the crowd went crazy. Like I said, you have to experience this in the theater. He's like, Peter. And then he's like, what have you done with my machine? And Peter's like, do I know you? And then he said, okay, you want to play games? So he starts throwing cards at them. They fight and everything. Peter goes to save the woman and stuff. And, he's telling the woman, everything is going to be okay. Doc Ock, pins him up against the wall, the concrete barrier of the bridge. That's when he snatches some of his nanotech from his suit, from the Iron Spider suit. He snatches some of that off. And, it absorbs and goes into his tentacles and stuff. That was just a cool shot. Then he goes to stab him. Like, you know, the tentacle that has, you know, the dagger in the middle. He goes to stab him. Well, the nanotech from his mask has gone to his chest to protect him from that dagger. And then, so, you know, because he absorbed the nanotech, you know, because it's start, you know, technology and stuff, and like a Bluetooth device, he pairs himself to Doc Ock, and now he's in control of Doc Ock's tentacles. So, of course, you know, he has them, you know, of course, because he's in control, you know, he brings the car back up top using the tentacles, and then, of course, he wraps Doc up in his own tentacles, and it gets quiet, and it sounds like a pin is dropping. You just hear ding, 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 and then you see the pumpkin bomb, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then, boom, the car explodes, and through the smoke, you just hear the laugh of William Dafoe, Green Goblin. I'm like, the OG villain has returned. The theater was crazy. I was up out my seat yelling. You know, just when you think you're about to see, you know, R. Peter fight William Dafoe's Green Goblin, no. Green Goblin swoops down. All of a sudden, you just see a ring just go like this, and now Peter's back at the Sanctum Sanctorum, where Doctor Strange has basically captured the lizard. And, you know, he tells Peter, when we botched that spell, we started getting visitors from other universes. So Doctor Strange takes one of the gauntlets on the Iron Spider, and he basically uses his magic and turns it into a magic gauntlet. So if Peter uses that web, whenever it hits one of the villains, it automatically transports them back to the Sanctum Sanctorum in their little prison that they can't escape. He's showing Ned and MJ around, and he's basically, you know, he's like showing them, you know, telling them about everything. Doc Ock, he's like, you know, who are these two? And then, you know, that's what he tells him, you know, oh, this is Ned, this is MJ. And then, you know, he's like, what's your name again? And he's like, Dr. Otto Octavius. He basically tells him, you know, about, you know, the green guy that he's seen flying, because Peter asked him. He was like, you know, the guy that we seen on the bridge, you said his name. He said Norman Osborn. And, you know, that's what Peter was saying, you know, he gotta go get him. Doc Ock had said, you know, that's impossible. And then he said, why? He said Norman Osborn died. He said, so either the guy we seen was a totally different guy, or you're flying out into the darkness to fight a ghost. And then the next scene is basically Peter flies through the sunset, and he basically flies into the darkness, and he lands in like this little field or whatever, and you see like little sand start moving, and I'm like, okay, this is Sandman. And then, like, of course, it's another quiet thing, and then, you know, behind them in this field, you just see like these little electric towers, and then from the wires on the towers, you see electricity just start rising up and forming this blue man. And I'm like, okay, this is how they brought Electro in. But I'm like, okay, where does his, you know, his new form come from? Because right now, he's forming a blue man. So, you know, where is his yellow electricity, you know, like we seen in the trailer and stuff? Well, he forms the blue guy. He doesn't go all the way back to how he was in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, but it's just like a transparent, you know, pure, just electric energy. So they get Electro to calm down. You know, Sandman, he helps out. He blocks the electricity. You know, he creates this dust storm around him and stuff. And then, so, you know, Peter, he pulls the plug on the electricity and all. And then, so that's when, you know, Electro calms down and he's back to, you know, just regular Jamie Foxx. And so they stand out there in the woods, you know, have their little comment and stuff. And then basically the funny thing was that Jamie Foxx was basically fully naked in this scene. So, you know, they're talking and stuff, and, you know, Jamie is like, you know, so y'all gonna stand here pretending that I'm, you know, I'm not clothed at all. And then so you know, Peter looks around and he sees, you know, one of the workers left there like jacket in their uniform and stuff. So he goes and, you know, he puts that on. Well, of course, while he puts it on, Peter Wilson and he gets sent back to the jail. After that, you know, Sandman, this is where Sandman kind of threw me for a loop a bit. Because when he first started out, he was up in Peter because he thought, you know, this is Tobey Maguire's Peter from, you know, Spider-Man. You know, because at the end of that movie, you know, he wasn't a villain anymore because he's just trying to see his daughter. You know, so then when Peter tells him, you know, he's from a different universe, of course, you know, he still doesn't know. I'm saying, okay, so, you know, Sandman is going to be here to help him. Well, then when he sends Electro to that jail, you know, now is all of a sudden, you know, what did you do to him? Did you kill him? And Peter is basically trying to explain, oh, I don't care. And now, you know, I'm angry and I'm fighting you now. And I'm like, then so Peter, you know, he zaps, you know, Sandman and stuff. Sandman goes to the jail and all that. He tells MJ he's going to stay behind and try to clean up, you know, so they don't, you know, because J. Jonah Jameson is on his head, bro. Like, he is not letting up on Peter. You know, everything that goes on, every tragedy, every monument that was, you know, destroyed or something, oh, it's Spider-Man's fault. Turn everybody against him and stuff. And then, so basically, you know, calling back to, you know, how William Dafoe said in, you know, the regular in the first Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, how he said, no matter what you do, you know, all that you do, they love to see a hero fall. You know, they're going to hate you. So, you know, that's basically what's happening now. Everybody's, you know, I'm not going to say everybody, because some people still support Peter. Some people, you know, they support Mysterio. Now, so, you know, it's like that. And then, so, you know, Peter says, I'm going to stay back to clean up. You know, the next morning, he's still there. He's cleaning up and stuff. And then that's when he gets a call from Aunt May. Aunt May says, I know that you're busy, but, and she starts whispering. She said, one of the guys that you're looking for just came in. And then, so, of course, you know, Peter goes back to Feast, you know, quick, fast, in a hurry. You know, he runs in there, he's yelling, you know, where's May? And then, so they point, you know, that she's in the kitchen. So he runs in there, and William Dafoe is sitting down at the table with Aunt May. And, you know, he's sitting there, you know, I believe he still has the Goblin suit on. But before that scene, before that scene when Peter went to fight Electro and Sandman, they cut to a scene in an alley where William Green Goblin, he's basically, you know, he's trying to get out of his suit and stuff, you know, and all that, and he has the helmet hanging on a dumpster, you know, just like in the first Spider-Man when he had it hanging on his chair. And the helmet is basically talking to him. The Goblin is talking to him. And he basically calls him a coward. You know, we have a new world to conquer and stuff. You know, Norman's like, leave me alone. You like, I'm not a monster and all this. And the mask is telling him, you can't run from who you are. So Norman picks up a rock and he smashes the mask. And then you just see the broken mask on the ground. And it runs off and you hear the Goblins laugh. I believe when he smashed the mask, the Goblin was never in the mask. The Goblin was in Norman. So when he smashed the mask, I don't believe that was Norman, you know, trying to fight the Goblin. I believe that was the Goblin just smashing the mask and like, oh, we're going to take this world and we're going to do it in a totally different way. And when he runs off and you hear the laugh, because it fades off the farther he goes. And I'm like, that's him laughing. Like, he's not Norman. He's been the Goblin the whole time. Now, I could be wrong, but this Norman has been the Goblin all along to me. And he was just putting on a front when he, you know, went to Feast for Aunt May. Back to the movie. So Peter goes to Feast. He sees, you know, Norman sitting in there with Aunt May. And, you know, so, you know, he's like, Osborn? And then he said, you know, I seen Spider-Man in an ad for this place. You know, I was thinking, you know, if he could help me. You know, sometimes I'm not myself, I'm someone else. And then, I'm scared of that person. It drives me crazy. And then he's like, I just need help. They go back to the St. Antonio May. She drives a Feast truck back there. Before Peter gets out, she says, hey, she said, he trusts you. And then, you know, but if you think about the last person that Peter trusted, which was Mysterio, yeah. I wouldn't start putting my trust in random strangers again. Norman, he's down there, he's looking around, and that's when him and Doc Ock, they interact, and Doc Ock was like, Norman, and then he's like, you died, and then he was like, what are you talking about? And then that's a Sandman. That's when he comes, and he's like, yeah, you did die. It was all over the news. Green Goblin impaled by his own glider, Dr. Otto Octavius, drowned in the river with his machine. And then, Doc Ock, he was like, that's insane. And then, so once he puts Norman in the cell, everybody's freaking out because Doctor Strange now has this little box. I forgot what it was called, but it's got the spell on the inside. And, he's fixing it. Once he fixes it, it'll send everybody back to their dimension, but it'll be right at the point that they left, so it'll be basically right before they died fighting their version of Spider-Man. Then, so Peter doesn't want to do that. So then, he sees Doctor Strange. They had the whole, Spider-Man and Doctor Strange fight. This fight was epic. They go in the mirror dimension, everything. The only thing about it, I don't see how Peter would win that fight. But of course, for the movie, Peter won, and Peter takes the villains to Happy's apartment. That was part one in the movie where I was like, bro, what are you doing? So he takes him into the apartment, and he's like, I can find ways to help y'all and stuff. Our technology is advanced. He goes and he opens the fabricator, which, if you all don't remember what the fabricator is, if you remember from Far From Home, when he was on the jet with Happy and he was making his new suit, that's the fabricator. The whole thing used with what he made with the suit is the fabricator. It's the whole machine. So, he shows them Stark technology. Of course, you see an arc reactor just in the middle of the thing. And of course, arc reactor, pure energy, Electro, oh, he's all over that. As soon as he comes, that's what he's looking like. Oh yeah, I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna take this. They fix Doc Ock's chip with the help of him and Norman Osborn, because he gives him that line from the first Spider-Man movie. He's like, I'm something of a scientist myself. Peter, he puts the replacement chip, on him, and then Doc Ock, like him, he's causing a fit. He's yelling and all that. Well, then when they put the chip on him, he just stops and his head just drops. And, they leave that, to think, oh, well, this didn't work. Well, then, that's when he comes to. And when he comes to, he's not Doc Ock. He's Dr. Otto Octavius. He's working on something else. His spider sense are going on. And this scene was just absolutely... When I tell you this scene was amazing, like, it was absolutely amazing. Because his spider sense goes off. It's quiet. You just hear the ringing. Peter's looking around. He doesn't know who or what is causing this to go off. So he's looking around, and the first person he goes to yell out for is Aunt May. He closes his eyes, and then he webs Norman. He closes his eyes, and then as soon as he opens up, he just webs him like. And then he just, he webs Norman. And Norman, he just looks. And then it's just the goblin face. Norman's basically saying, these aren't curses. They're gifts. And he's basically referring to them as gods. And then he's like, gods don't seek help or need help. We take. And right when he says that, Electro's like, yeah, that's what we are. We're gods. And then, we take what we want. Electro rips the thing off. The timer, that was absorbing his electronic energy. And he uses energy. And like I said, Peter again, showing the enemies what they want. He grabs Tony's arc reactor from around the wall. Got it on there. So now he's got the arc reactor on his chest. Pure energy. And all that. So now, yeah. So he blasts Dr. Octavius through the wall, and Sandman, of course, is escaping through that hole in the wall. Electro then zap his electricity through the dust storm that Sandman is creating, which is zapping everything outside. So now, J. Jonah Jameson is outside and he's just eating this up. He's recording everything. And then, that's when Peter is basically inside now fighting Green Goblin. And this fight was brutal. This fight was more brutal than the end of Spider-Man 1. Green Goblin gave them, I'm talking about, he gave them hands and everything to Peter. Peter had some nice moves now, but he gave them hands and everything to Peter. Green Goblin basically body slams Peter through I don't know how many floors of this building, all the way to the main entrance. And I'm just like, bruh, this is insane. This is insane. So Aunt May has taken the stairwell. So when she makes it to the lobby, they make it to the lobby. So she's coming through the stairs. They're coming through the roof. They came down through the roof. But then you see the Goblin's glider. They don't notice it, but you see his glider come from outside, and it's right there at the door. And I'm like, I know they are not finna kill May. How they killed Goblin in Spider-Man 1. I know she's not about to get impaled by this glider. I just knew she was. The glider flies in and basically hits May. Now, it doesn't seem to impale her, but it hits her and, knocks her down. Peter, he finds May, she's laying down on the ground and stuff. But then he gets her, she stands up pretty quick. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe she's all right. Maybe they didn't do what I was thinking they was going to do. And I'm like, okay, maybe she's all right. And, so they're talking and he's like, you're okay, right? And then she said, yeah. And then, he was like, this is all my fault. And she's still on that, you have to help them and stuff. And I'm like, bro, why is she on it? And then she says the line. She says, Peter, she says, you have great power. And with great power, there must also come great responsibility. She says the original line from the comics. And I'm like, when she said that, I was like, no. And then, because I know when someone says that line, it's over with. From the movies that we've seen, when someone says that line, they about to die. They about to get gone. They about to be out of there. When that line hit, Uncle Ben, Spider-Man 1, the Amazing Spider-Man, not May. I'm like, oh yeah, it's over with for her. They try to psych you out though. They start walking, she takes a little steps. Then that's when she collapses. She just falls to the ground. But this one, I was like, dang, I knew it. I hate that I knew it, but I knew it. And then she dies. Happy pulls up, and that's the scene from the trailer. If you've seen because I thought Happy was gonna get killed. When you seen the scene in the trailer where he's sitting in his car, and you got the scopes with the laser beam on it and stuff, and they pointing at him and all that, and I'm like, oh snap! I'm like, they about to kill Happy, but no, he pulls up, and he looks in, he sees Peter down on the ground with May. And now they're yelling at him to get out the car, and they, he gets out the car. They put him on the hood and stuff. They're putting handcuffs on him and whatnot. And the whole time he's yelling at Peter to run. And of course Peter, he's not moving because he's sitting there. He's devastated over Aunt May. He's crying and all that. And then they open fire and start shooting, and Peter gets hit by one of the bullets. And I'm like, Peter done already called out for an ambulance. It's an ambulance right outside, but they are not helping at all. And I'm like, bruh, help this man. But I'm like, it was just crazy. Like, the first half of the movie was good. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love this movie entirely. Like, the first half was good, but it wasn't like, just impactful. It was kind of, lighthearted, okay. Peter, he's on the run and stuff and all this and that. Okay, we got Matt Murdock and stuff. We done seen William Dafoe. We done seen Doc Ock and all this. But this is where the turning point hit. Cut from that scene, and Peter, he's out on this scene right here. This one shot was just beautiful. It's this automatic billboard, with J. Jonah Jameson newscast just broadcasting all over the city. Probably all over the world. And he's basically, telling, what didn't happen. And he's blaming it on Spidey. And it's like everything is turning against Peter in this one moment. And like the rain is, it's falling on his face while the tears are falling, while his face is covered in blood. And I'm like, this is insane. Like, this is really insane. And then, so we cut to, we go to Ned and MJ. And they are at Ned's house. And, they are in Ned's house, and they're listening to it and stuff. And MJ is like, I'm gonna press this button. I'm gonna press the button to send everybody back. I know Peter said not to, but I'm gonna do it because now it's getting to the point now that it's just devastating. It's like, no, I'm gonna end this once and for all. What we should have did from the start. I'm gonna hit this button. And Ned is like, I just wish we could see him. And of course, that's what I forgot to say. So when Peter, when he trapped Doctor Strange in the mirror dimension, he took the ring that he uses to open the portals and stuff. He took it off of his hand. He welded, he took it off his hand, and he gave it to Ned. Him and Ned, they do their little handshake or whatever. And then when they, when they look back and like point at each other, it's like this little spark. And I'm like, they're gonna give Ned magic. I was like, they're really gonna give him Ned magic. So yeah, they gave him Ned magic now. And so he has the ring on his fingers and stuff. And then so he's like, I just wish we could see Peter. And like he's moving his hand. And you see like a little spark happen, like in the corner of the room or something. And I'm like, he's about to open the portal. And MJ is like, Ned, do that again. And she's like, I just wish, he's like, I just wish we could see him. And then so he starts, trying to open it. And then the portal opens up. And you see a Spider-Man in a dark alley. And I'm like, it took me a minute. I didn't realize, I'm thinking, it was, to be honest, I thought it was Tom. And, I didn't realize. And, I'm thinking it's Peter. It was Peter. But not our Peter. So it opens up, the crowd is getting hyped. And they're like, Peter, come on, and all that. And he takes off running. And the closer he gets, and I see the light bounce on his suit, and I'm like, my mouth literally dries open, I'm like, it's him. Andrew Garfield, Spider-Man, jumped through the portal, and I'm like, I was hyped. I didn't yell or anything, but I was hyped. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, it's Andrew. It wasn't like, yay. But, I was just couldn't believe it. And then, so, he comes in, so Ned tries again, and this time he's being more specific. Instead of saying, I just wish I could see him. He's like, I wish I could see Peter. And the portal opens up behind him, and I automatically get goosebumps because I'm like, if they brought Andrew, I know they're about to bring him. And he doesn't come in as Spider-Man. Tobey Maguire, Peter Parker, walks through. And I am the first person out of my seat. Yes! Yes! Yeah! Like my homeboy had to hold me back because I was that hyped. I was like, yes! They did it! Because I remember when I first seen Into the Spider-Verse. When I first seen Into the Spider-Verse, I was like, I hope to God that they do a live action Spider-Verse movie. I still hope they do one with Miles and every other Spider-Man, but I was like, if it's just Tom, Tobey, and Andrew, I would just love to see all three Spider-Man on this screen in one movie. I was like, I hope that comes true while I'm alive. I was like, I hope that comes true. And it did. And he looks and he sees Andrew. And when you just see them look at each other, I'm like, it's actually happening. It is actually happening. And the first thing they do is like their eyes get big. And the first thing they do, both of them shoot wells at each other, jump on the ceiling. I'm like, I have already been sold on this movie. We haven't even seen Tom interact with them yet. And I'm like, I just seen my favorite superheroes. Both of the people that played my favorite superhero are on the same movie, interacting with each other. It's like I had been looking for your friend, and he's like, I just have this feeling that he needs me, and Andrew said he needs us. And then Toby says, yeah. And then MJ says, yeah, he does. And said, because we are really all that he has right now. And they're like, well, do you know where he's at? And then Ned's, unfortunately we don't. And they said, well, is there any place, that holds special value to him? And, Toby says, his was the top of the Chrysler building, that he sits on. And Andrew is the Empire State Building. And then, they was like, is there anywhere, where there was, that would be meaningful to him? And, MJ is like, I think I know where. And they go back to, Midtown, to the high school. And, of course, Peter's sitting there on the roof. And Ned comes, and, Ned comes, and Peter, he just has a sad look. But MJ comes and embraces him. And that is when Peter breaks down. And I'm just like, bro, this is tough. It was tough to watch, because I'm like, he just lost Aunt May. Like, Ned and MJ are really all that he has right now, and happy, because they're all that he has right now. And then MJ says, there's some people here, and then he kind of senses him, and like he jumps up and he's like they're about to fight, and I'm like, no, bro, like, even though it would have been cool to kind of see, all three Spiders not like fight each other where they're trying to hurt each other, but like they don't know what's going on. But it's like, no, bro. It's like, we're here to help. And then they cut to like a shadow of, like the water tower on top of the school or whatever. And you just had the moon and the silhouette of Toby and Andrew just, perched up on the side and on top, and I'm like, and then so they jump down, and Peter, they already trying to talk to Peter, and then Andrew's like, we know what you're going through. He's like, no, he's like, don't tell me that, and I can appreciate that, because I'm like, bro, I just lost my aunt, like, just in front of me, like, don't come at me, like, I understand what you're going through, even though you do, don't come at me with that right now. And then so so they're still not leaving or anything, but Peter, he's like, I don't care anymore, you can deal, if you guys killed those guys, they're from your worlds, you can deal with them, I'm done. And he goes like he want to press the button. Well, MJ doesn't give him the box, and then that's what Toby tells him, he's like, my Uncle Ben died in my arms, and it was my fault. And that's because Peter had mentioned, Aunt May died in his arms. And he was like, and it was his fault. She died for nothing. And then so Toby's Peter tells him, my Uncle Ben died in my arms, and it was my fault. And he was like, and then after I went and tracked down the guy that had killed him, because I wanted him dead. And he was like, I got what I wanted, but that didn't make it better. And then Andrew says the most interesting line. I'm like, I want to see that in a movie. Andrew says, he lost Gwen. Of course, we've seen from the Amazing Spider-Man 2. And he said he's never going to be able to get over that. He said Gwen was his MJ, so Peter could understand. And then so he was like, I'm never going to be able to get over that. He said, but I still try to hold on to that hope that she wanted, for me to be, the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. But he said, after a while, I stopped pulling my punches. And I was like, so that means this man went hardcore And I'm like, I want to see this. I really want to see this. So he was like, I stopped pulling my punches. And I'm like, okay, so this dude was going hardcore off. And I'm like, I want to see this. But then he's like, he doesn't want Peter to go down that path that he went down. Peter was like, like, y'all don't understand this. Like, she told me, she got I'm supposed to save these guys. And Peter said, she told me that with great power. And then Toby said, comes great responsibility. And I got goosebumps everywhere. I was like, yes. And then, so, that's what Peter, when Toby says that he looks at him, he's like, how do you know that? And then Andrew says, Uncle Ben said it. And then Toby said, right before he died. And I was like, yes, they're coming at you at a level that you understand. And now you understand they're here to help. They're not here for anything else but to help you. And I loved it. And then so they go down into the school laboratory and stuff. And this is where the fun part comes in, because that's exactly what we needed. When they go into the laboratory, it's all the Peters basically getting to know each other. And so, they're talking and stuff. Our Peter, Tom Holland, he dumps out, everything, and he lists off all the villains. And he, because they're going to figure out ways to cure them. Not beat them up and kill them, but cure them. And so he names off all the villains except for Green Goblin. And then right when they name off all the villains, Andrew, oh, I got Dr. Connors, I done did that before. Toby says, I've been thinking for a while, I think I can find a cure, for Osborn, for Norman Osborn. And then he said, I've been thinking about that for a while. And when he says that, Tom just, he just stays looking at the table. And Toby looks over at him because he can sense, he upset and he wants to kill Norman. And then so they work on cures and whatnot. And, you just get the little fun scenes and stuff of all three Peters together interacting and all that. They figure out, the ways that they're going to cure him. They got the antidotes and all that. And then so they were like, okay, so now we gotta find a way where we're gonna, bring him to. And that's what Andrew said. So let me get this straight. So all we're gonna do is try to cure them while they try to kill us. And they're like, yeah. He said, okay. And so like all the Peters, they're there in their Spidey outfits and everything. And they're just talking and catching up. And so Andrew, they're talking and stuff. And Andrew said, so you make organic webs? And Toby's like, can we not talk about this? I mean, Toby's like, are you making fun of me? He said, and then Tom was like, no, we're not making fun of you. We're just, it's just fascinating. Like, do the webs, do they just come out of your wrist, or, do they come out of anywhere else? And then, you get that little laugh break, and then, that's what, they're still talking. And Andrew asked him, have you ever had a web block? And Toby realizes, back like in Spider-Man 2, he did have a web block. And then that's when Tom asked, so what are some of the craziest villains, you guys have fought? And Toby was like, it seems that you met some of them. And like they laugh, and then he said, I did fight a alien made of black goo once. And then I'm like, Venom. And then I started thinking, because I was like, bruh, in Venom Let There Be Carnage, the post-credit scene was Venom getting transported to the MCU. So I was like, do not tell me he's about to show up now. And this is how they're going to bring him. But, then Tom, he was like, oh, I fought alien before in space and on Earth. He was purple. Talking about Thanos. And then so Andrew, he's like, oh, I'm lame. And then he said, I've only fought a Russian guy in a metal rhinoceros outfit. And then, that's what Toby was like, can we just run that back? Like, you are not lame. You are amazing. Calling out his name, the Amazing Spider-Man. Who's first villain? Oh, Electro. he shows up. Yeah, so Electro was out there fighting, the Spider-Man. It was not working out good for all three Spider-Man at first. So, of course, they reconvene. Sandman has not joined the mix, so they reconvene. And then he says, so obviously, we don't know how to work as a team. And then, Toby and Andrew were like, yeah, because I've never been on a team before. And, Tom was like, well, I have. I don't mean to brag, but I will. And he was like, I was part of the Avengers. And then you have Toby, the Avengers, that's great. And I'm like, I know he haven't heard about the Avengers. And then he's like, what is that? And then I'm like, there it goes. He's just like, what is that? And then Andrew, is that a band? Are you like in a band? He said, no. And then, Tom was like, they were Earth's mightiest. And then, you think he's going to say superheroes. And then Toby cuts him out, how is this helping? So then they said, what we need to do is, pick one target, focus on that target, and that's it. So they came up with their game plan, and you get a scene of all three Spider-Man running together before they leap off the building. And I was going nuts. I was like, yes! Like, bro, this is what I have been waiting for. Like, I love this. And then, so, like, all three of them, they leave off, and, like, they're web slinging, they're yelling and stuff. It comes a shot, and you have to make sure you pay attention to the shot, because if you blink, you miss it. But Tom actually whips to his other two brothers, Spider Brothers, and their webs connect, and he slings them back up front with him, so they all land basically at almost at the same time. And then that's where you get the scene. You see the Lizard get ready, you see Sandman get ready, you see Electro get ready, and then they all leap off at the same time. And you see Andrew does his flip, he kicks Lizard in the head, and then so they're like, okay, we're taking on Sandman first, and they go grab the cure for Sandman. Then so he throws the cure to Tom. He said, Peter one. He throws the cure, and then Tom, he flies up to the thing, and then he throws the cure to Toby. He grabs Toby, and like he's bringing him down in the sand and all that. And then Toby's hand reaches up, he catches the cure, and it spins. It lights up and spins just like the collider that he fell into, and it cures him. I think they went after Electro after that, and Electro, calling back to the Amazing Spider-Man 2. He has Andrew, caught in a thing of electricity, and all that. Andrew's trying to fight to get out and stuff. And then you see a Doc Ock tentacle just grab one, and then he grabs the other. And I'm like, bruh, I know Doc Ock is not coming back to fight. And then he grabs them, and then he knocks the thing that they were gonna carry Electro with out of Andrew's hand. And the other tentacle grabs it. Electro, he's like, I don't need no help. I got this on my own. And then I'm like, bruh, he's about to sabotage. And then so that's when you see Alfred Molina, Doc Octavius, he still has them in their hand. And he got the other thing that he cures Electro with. But he turns, and then the other free tentacle takes the art reactor from Electro and replaces it with the cure. That's when they cure Lizard, because Lizard, he's, like I said, he's chasing everybody down, and now he hears MJ and Ned, because the whole thing was when they were fighting, they led all the villains there with the hope of them getting that box. Well, then once all the villains got there, Peter threw the box back to Ned and MJ, and they were in the lab, through a portal, and he threw it back to them. This time Ned cannot close the portal. He ran in there after them, and Peter, he made his way in there. And bro, when I tell you, when Peter came in there like kicking hard, like he was like, they were running and they had almost made it to a wall, so they turned, and Lizard had, like, it was like he was crawling off the wall, to jump at them. And when he automatically turned, Peter just came in there like, pow, and just kicked Lizard like straight through the door. And then so it was, it was crazy. And then so You know, so they went back through the portal and stuff. So now all of them are up there, you know, at the battlefield and whatnot. And he put the cure in his mouth. So when he bit it, it broke. And, you know, it just went all through him. And then, so, you know, that's how he got cured. So they cured Sandman, they cured the Lizard, they cured Electro, Doc Ock, like I said, he got cured earlier. And then, so, you know, all the Peters are there now in front of Doctor Strange. And Doctor Strange, you know, he's getting ready to press it on the box. And, you know, Peter's saying, you know, our plan is working, you know, like, leave it alone and stuff. And then he's like, I'm sorry. And then he's like, but I have to. And then that's when you hear William Dafoe, Green Goblin. Can the Spider-Man come out to play? And then you just see him come through the clouds on his glider. Green Goblin with his hood, no mask. He's got like Doc Ock's goggles and you know, just his face. And he flies in and you know, so he grabs the box from Doctor Strange and he goes to fly off. Alfred Molina, he reaches out the tentacle and grabs the glider so it can't go anywhere. And William Dafoe twists the glider to where it cuts one of Doc Ock's tentacles off. And so then he you know, Strange, he whips and he gets the box back. Not to think that this man was so William Dafoe's Green Goblin is so smart, because he overheard Doc Ock earlier if this spell got out, you know, it's detrimental. The man puts a pumpkin bomb in the box with the spell. So when Strange gets it back and he turns it, it automatically explodes. And then like all three Peters they see and they're like, sure enough. And it's too late. It automatically explodes. The spell is gone everywhere. That's when you get the scene that you seen in the trailer where it's just the black sky and the purple lines coming through. It's because the spell has broken. And all these Spider-Man villains that know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man are about to start coming through. It's like the reality is starting to break. The explosion, it shook the Statue of Liberty, that Captain America shield that they're putting on, started to fall through the construction, and it knocks MJ off, and she goes to fall in the same sequence as Gwen fell in the Amazing Spider-Man 2. And just like we saw in the trailer, Tom jumps and he leaps for her. And just when his hand looks like it's about to reach and connect, he gets pushed out the way and carried off by Green Goblin on his glider. And I'm like, bruh, do not let him. I know this is his redemption arc. I know it is. Andrew, you just see him yell out, no. And he focuses more on the leap than he does about leaping and then webbing. And he focuses more on the leap, pushes his body. He catches MJ in his arm, looks up, webs to get his web, and then he just eases, they just laying. And he's holding MJ in his arms. Gwen that he couldn't catch, he has caught MJ. And he breaks down. And you know, he looks at MJ, he says, you know, are you okay? And she says, yeah. She said, I'm okay. And then they go back to his face and he is sobbing, just crying. And she's like, are you okay? And then he sucks it up and he's like, you know, yeah. And I remember in the theater when that part hit, everybody had cheered when he called her, but when that part hit, like everybody was really kind of quiet. And then so like when that part hit, you know, I just yelled out in the theater. I was like, my boy redeemed himself. Whole theater just started clapping and cheering as soon as I said that, because I was like, that's what we have been waiting for. Like, we wanted Andrew to redeem himself, not redeem himself as, you know, as, oh, I messed up, you know, like, oh, I suck, you know, I'm not a good Spider-Man, but redeem himself as, no, like, my boy, you know, he can't go outside like that. Like, he gotta have that comeback, and that's what he got when he caught MJ. But then that's when we get the scene. You know, Peter is still, you know, on the edge of Green Goblin's glider, and Green Goblin is there, you know, he's just doing his maniacal laugh, and Peter rips, you know, the weapons vault on the glider. He rips it open. He takes out a pumpkin bomb. He presses it and jams it back in there with all the other bombs. So the glider, like, it just explodes and they fall down on on the shield that they were putting on the Statue of Liberty. They fall down on that big shield, and that's where the final fight happens. And they fall down, and then Strange, they cut to him. He's up there, trying to keep these realities from breaking and stuff. And they fall down onto that shield, and then they get up, and like, of course, Peter's hurt. Norman, he's kind of hurt too. And they get up, and Norman said, too weak to send us back home or something. And that's what Peter says. No, he said, I just wanted to kill you for myself. And then that's when, Goblin says, attaboy. And that last fight was, when I tell you the first fight with Goblin was brutal, this fight right here, Peter was giving Goblin the business. I'm talking about he was boom, boom. I'm talking about all types of punches. Like, it came once when he had hit Goblin so bad he fell down, and he jumped in the air to land down, and he was literally gonna hit Goblin, move out the way. When Peter landed and punched, he went through that metal shield. I was like, bro, if Goblin was right there, it was gonna be over. Peter was trying to murk this guy. Like, I understand. He had just killed Aunt May in front of him. Peter was not trying to kill him or nothing. He was trying to murk this guy. And then, so, he moves out the way. Of course, it's Goblin. He got tricks up his sleeve. He got a little blade out of his armor. Just like when Tony was fighting Thanos, and he reached back and his nanotech made a blade, and he stabbed Thanos, and then Thanos stabbed him with the same blade. Yeah, it was like that. So he whipped out a blade out of his armor. It wasn't nanotech, but it was like a metal blade. And then so Peter was dodging. I think he got his elbow cut once. Peter, I'm talking about, he whips him down, and the Goblin really can't go no more. And then you just see the Goblin's glider at Peter's feet, and I was like, I know they're not about to kill him the way he died in Spider-Man 1. I know they're not. I know he is not about to stab him with his glider again. And then Peter picks up the glider, and he limps over towards Goblin, and he's about to bring the glider down. I'm talking about, I don't know if he was finna John Walker or the Falcon and Winter Soldier when he took the shield and beat the guy's chest in. I don't know if he was finna decapitate him with that glider, or if he was finna just, stab him through the neck or through the head or through the chest or whatever. But when he goes and brings that glider down, before it can connect, Toby gets in front and he catches it. And I was like, I know, they weren't about to, stab Toby with the glider. But he gets in front and he catches it. Now all you hear is shing, and then I'm like, you hear shing, and then you see Toby's eye like this. And Goblin has stabbed Toby through the back. And I'm like, I know good and well that y'all are not about to kill Toby. I know good and well that y'all are not about to kill Toby. Now, I had heard rumors, because I had watched all the trailers, I had seen all the TV spots, I had heard some of the leaks and stuff, and I had heard a rumor that Toby was supposed to die. I heard it was like a plot leak or something, that Toby was supposed to get killed. And I was like, I understand that if any Spider-Man in this film was supposed to die, it would have to be Toby, because he's the old, if you want to say he's the OG veteran, I understood that, but I was like, I don't want them to go through with that. And then, especially the way that he was brought into this movie, it would make no sense to the plot for Toby to die. It would literally have made no sense. Like, you brought him into this universe just to kill him. Like, it wouldn't have made no sense. And I think what they did was, I think they tested it with the audience, because Goblin stabs him, and of course he falls to the ground. Andrew, after Goblin stabs him, Andrew throws the cure to Tom. Tom, stabs Goblin in the neck with the cure. So Toby is laying there, and you know, he's got the smile on his face, but his face is looking like, you know, he's about to go. And I was like, bro, I know they are not finna kill this man. Like, it would have made no sense for them to kill this man, bro. Like, I was like, I know they're not about to do this. And so, you know, I'm sitting there now. I'm just getting myself prepared. I'm like, if this man died, I was like, I'm done with this movie. I was still gonna love the movie because I love seeing all three Spider-Man. But I was like, if this man dies, if Tobey Maguire Spider-Man died in this movie, and there was really no, like, I would get if they were, you know, if they were being beat down in a fight and he sacrificed himself, or if it was for the greater good and he sacrificed himself. But just for him to calm Tom down and then get stabbed in the back and die, nah, I wasn't rocking with that. So I was like, bro, I know they are not finna kill this man. And so you see it on his face. And Andrew, he comes over there at the time, has carried, you know, the goblin and stuff. He comes over there to Toby and all that. Man, you know, he's like, you good? And, you know, that's when they play it off. You know, Toby was like, yeah. He said, I done dealt with a stab before. And that's why I was like, they had to have tested that and had to have used something else. Because they probably tested it to where they killed Toby, and that wasn't, you know, the audience wasn't rocking with that. So that's probably what had to happen. He was like, yeah, he's like, I dealt with a stab before. And then Andrew gets him back up. And like, you know, Toby, he's leaning on Andrew with his arm, you know, and stuff. You don't see the stab wound nowhere on Toby at all. But Peter, you know, he tells Dr. Strange, he said, so you can't start him. He said, what if you redid the spell? And he's like what? And then he said, if you did the spell to make everyone forget, you know, that I'm Peter Parker, the spell that, you know, they were supposed to originally do. And then he said, no. And then he said, would that work? And then he said, yes. He said, but he said, the people, you know, the people that know you and the people that love you, he said, and then he cut himself out. And then he said, we will not have any memory of you, you know, implying that even he loves him. And then so, you know, Peter, he says, you know, that he tells him, he looks at him and then he says, do it. And, you know, he sacrifices that, you know, the bonds, the family that he had, the people, everybody that knew him, he sacrifices all that for the greater good. It was either 5 weeks or 3 weeks later. But he goes and he goes back to the shop where MJ and Ned are, and he walks in and she looks at him, and then so when she looks at him, it's like almost like she's, you know, like she's happy, like she's surprised, and then, you know, he starts waving at her and whatnot. He had prepared a whole speech, you know, to tell her everything. Her and Ned, they go read the letters, and she's been, like, both of them have been accepted into MIT. And then so she comes back to ring up Peter, and you think he's about to say I love you, which he is. But then he thinks and he sees the bandage on her head from, of course, their fight. You know, before the spell had took place. And then so he realizes that they're better off without me. Not saying that, you know, not saying that they didn't want, like, they shouldn't have been his friends in the first place, but he's saying, with me being Spider-Man, it's always going to be people close to me that are in danger or that could get hurt, you know, just by me being Spider-Man. So he makes the sacrifice, and instead of telling her he loves her and telling Ned and telling him the truth, instead he just walks out. It's to close out his trilogy. We finally get his origin in the MCU. This is a Spider-Man that is 100% Spider-Man, where he's on his own, where it's just him. No Stark Tech, no AIs in the suits or anything like that. It's just Peter Parker, Spider-Man. He goes, and now he has an apartment. He gets his own apartment. He had to get his GED because, of course, he couldn't graduate with his class. So he had to, you know, get the GED and stuff. But he walks in, he sets up his apartment and stuff. and then you just see him. He's sitting there on his bed. He got his phone. You know, he's listening to the radar. You know, looking for crime. He hears crime, and then you see his mask. You know, laying there on his pillow, and just like in the Spider-Man PS4 game, you know, he's going out the window, and you see the suit moving out the window, and it's the classic red and blue suit. Like, he stitched it himself. Like, this was not a Stark hand-me-down, or, you know, something I made on the Stark fabricator. No, this is a stitched-made, classic, put-together red and blue suit. And the blues is like a higher blues. It's a classic suit with the classic spider symbol on the front and on the back. And you know, he grabs his mask, he leaps out he goes out the window, and he's swinging. And he's just, you know, you see the suit, and he's swinging and stuff, and then that's where it ends. And yeah, that was the movie, and that was honestly the best Spider-Man movie that there is. And yeah, I can't wait to see, you know, where they go from here. You know, I still love Marvel, you know, Sony, everything. I just can't wait to see, you know, what more is going on, you know, in this world, in this fandom, you know, that I love so much. But yeah, that was my review. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. And until next time, it's your boy JR3, and I'll see you later.